Hello and welcome to the first episode of new series of Frog Engineering YouTube channel. The series name is Frog Manual. In this series I will show how to build converted guns, magazines, speed loaders and many more. I wanted to start with some manual for the conversions, but actually maybe you remember from the other videos I said that the magazines will be open source and you can print them and build them yourself. In this episode I will show how to build FMAGs 556, which are the magazines for AR-15 type of replicas from WE or VFC, in future maybe more, and of course the HK 416 family for both these manufacturers. Of course, doing something by yourself might be a little boring, so it's great to bring a friend. And for the guest we need to provide something to welcome him properly. Before we can start the assembly we need to prepare some more things, which are the printed parts. Left and right half of the magazine, the outer shells with bottom plates. I print them out of resin because it's much quicker, I can build more at once and they look nicer, but regular FDM is also okay. To the shells there are two types of bottom plates, either the Frogpull one or the flat one. The same for the FDM, you see the models work. In the links there will be separate models for all these three components, I mean FDM version or the resin version, and there are some tiny differences to ease the printing, like elephant's foot reduction. Those guys who are into 3D printing know what I mean. So we stay with this one, but it's nothing bad in printing this out of FDM and it can work too. And some tiny parts. This is the lock for the capacity, the lock for the bottom plate, two parts of the follower and the feeding lips. This is the most critical part because it has to be really strong in order not to break. Therefore I'm using a PETG material filled with carbon fiber. For the rest of the parts you can use whatever you want, it makes no big difference, but in the links there is a list of materials I use for those parts. You will also need main spring. This is a regular round spring. It's 46 centimeters long. The diameter of the wire is 0.5 millimeters and the pitch of the wire is 3 millimeters. You need very strong spring in order to actuate the bolt catch in time, so make sure that you're getting something similar. Plus you will need a paper clip, a centimeter or centimeter and a half of the main spring, free, so I'm using some leftovers, two brass inserts 3 mm high with M2 thread, the diameter 3 mm, 5 M3 nuts, 5 M3 × 12 screws, this type of head, plus 2 screws for the feeding lips, and I'm using one the M2 × 16 and one M2 × 14, although 2 16s or 14s would be also okay. When we have all of this prepared, we can start. First step will be pre-assembly of follower. We want to connect these parts using the rod made of paper clip in order to have something like this, where the tip of the follower can rotate around the rest of it. One important thing is that for all these printed parts you need to really clean them out, make sure there are no blobs or any defects, because otherwise these magazines will jam obviously, yeah, so make sure they are clean. I'm pushing the paper clip into this hole on the side with some clamps. Now I will move it back so that this top part of the follower can go in, and now I'm pushing it all the way through, and as soon as the follower is attached I will cut off the paper clip 1 mm away from this follower and this sticking out part I will press into the follower so that it does not go all the way through on both sides. Yeah, it should be hidden. If it sticks out, it can cause some jamming, so you want to file it, but in my case it's perfect and the follower works like it should. So the first step is ready. Now some second pre-assembly. Second pre-assembly will be for those two halves of the magazines. Again, they need to be properly cleaned, especially in this area where the BBs go, here on both sides, and also in this deep groove for the follower arm, to make sure that we will be assembling those two brass nuts on the top of the halves. So first, let's take this one. I will put the M2 screw in here to make sure that it goes through, and I will be melting in the brass nut, so because the screw is there, there will be no plastic clamping or clogging this hole for the screw. So I put the brass nut like this on the side, and I'm using soldering iron to push it into when it hits. Now let's try if the screw goes in. Yeah, you can see it went all the way through, so it's fine. And here there are two things to check. One is this surface has to be flat, so if there is some plastic deformed or the brass nut is sticking out, you need to take a file and make it flat back again. And the second thing is, here on the other side you want to make sure that you did not push the brass nut too far in and this side did not deform. In my case it's okay, yeah, it did not deform, there will be no jamming here. Then the second half, it's similar, but the position of the brass nut it's a little bit different because we have the follower interface to the bolt catch mechanism here, so follow the exact same routine but on the other side. First we put in the screw, then we insert the brass nut like this, and we mold it in here a little from the side and front because the position is a little different. Here we have to be very careful not to overdo it. And we test it with the screw again, so it goes in. If this surface here is not flat, we need to file it. And the same goes for the front. Again, you want to make sure that this side did not deform. One thing is this surface here right under my fingernail, but the second thing is that this groove has its full width, because it's very easy to push the brass nut too far inside and deform it, like, you know, exactly like my finger would be a part of that groove. And if this occurs, then the follower will not go through. So look there, make sure it's okay. In my case, it's okay. I did it so many times that have no problems with it anymore. And this brass nut is not held so firmly in place, so you might want to use some super glue or Loctite glue, the quick drying one, just to make sure it won't come loose. If we did it, then we are ready for the main assembly. First thing to do is to apply some silicone oil into this groove, and I apply a lot of it because the 3D printed surface is not flat, so it's not like it will stay on top of it and your BBs will catch tons of oil and the hop-up will stop working. It will actually go into these micro grooves in the layers, so it's not a problem. This will dry out and we need some of it, so let's do it. Again, this will dry out, so no problem. We take the right half, the one without the groove for BBs, and here in the corner we first put in this small section of the spring, and then we put in the base plate lock. We orient it like this, so the chamfer goes to the rear, and this half sphere goes into the spring. It will want to jump out, so I hold it with my finger and I put the second half over to catch it in place. When I have it ready, I will check the base plate lock. It should be going back when I push it and then out again, which works. So now I will screw two halves together using the M3 screws and M3 nuts, and there are 5 places. Those hexagonal are for the nuts, and on the other side the rounds one are for the screws. So what you need to do, obviously, you put the screw in, you put the nut in, you take a screwdriver and you do it 5 times. Then the main spring, again 46 centimeters, and here you want to make sure that the ends are flat, and the one that will be going out towards the follower, it has to be a little bended inwards, like here. It's bended inwards, so this sharp tip will not catch on the plastic because it will not be sticking out. You put the spring inside, and I will use this small screwdriver to push it all the way in, and the spring will be, of course, wanting to spring back, so here I'm holding it with my finger. When I have some free space, I will take the follower and put it in like this, a little from the side. This little tab has to go into the groove on that left hand side half, like that. Let's push it together and slowly release the spring. And when I have it assembled, I can try if this follower moves. In my case, it's okay. So I keep this, holding this in my hand so that the follower will not be shot out. And I take the outer shell, the resin one in my case, as I mentioned, and I put this inside. So like this, and there will be a little force needed to push it in, and you don't want to, you know, hit this so hard that it catapults out of this side and breaks everything. So you need to push it in so that the part of the black plastic should be on the same level as the bottom of the magazine. That's your goal. So I do it like this. I put the magazine vertically and I just push on it so this shell will go to the level of the table, which is the same level the black part rests on. And it's safely done. Now we will add the feeding lips on top. This is simple, just put them over, and you want to make sure that the BBs, when you put them into this feeding lips, they go in to the top and then fall out completely. Yeah, so if they will be staying somewhere, it means that you need to clean this up from the inside or change your printer parameters. So I just put it over and I take those 2 screws, the M2s, and you remember one is longer, so the longer one goes on this side where the follower has the arm for the bolt catch, and the second one goes on this other side, and I secure them with a screwdriver. They will go into the brass inserts we mounted earlier. So it's screwed now. You now probably understand why we want the brass inserts. If we left only the plastic hole and threaded it into the plastic, it would wear out after some time, and this way we have a multiple times use connection and we can replace the feeding lips every time they break. The capacity lock goes here, and if you put it into this deep hole there like this, it will limit the amount of BBs in the magazine to 30, which is the real capacity. Or you can put it flat like this, and now you have all 42 rounds of capacity, and it sits here just not to get lost. One important thing, if you want to switch the capacity, make sure that the follower is on this side of the groove, not behind, meaning that you took out enough BBs so that the follower is on this side, because if the follower will be on this side, you will lock it in the rear part, and you will limit the capacity to 12 BBs with 30 BBs in the track that are just not able to go up anymore because follower is caught on the lock. And when it's done, we take the bottom plate, whichever you prefer. We just put it here and we slide it till the end. And make sure that the lock is visible, this orange part, meaning that the base plate is secured. So now the magazine is almost ready. There is one more thing we need to do, which is formatting. What does it mean? You might know it from all the magazines for ages. You just need to load them and unload them a few times to make the spring and plastic sit together better. I do it like this. I add 10 BBs, then I empty the whole magazine. Then I add 15 BBs, empty out whole magazine. 20 BBs, empty out. 25 BBs, and so on. And I keep repeating this until I get to the full capacity of 32 rounds. And when I'm at this capacity, I also repeat it like twice or 3 times to make sure that everything's smooth. Regarding the capacity, I said that this magazine holds maximum of 42 rounds, but actually you are able to load it, if you force it, to 43 rounds. And this is not intended, but there is no real solution to this. The reason is because, as you maybe know how the nozzle works, it has this piece that pulls out the BBs every time the bolt carrier group cycles. So it pushes out the BBs, but if you have the bolt carrier group in the gun forward and you insert the magazine, this part that pushes the BBs out will collide with those in the magazine, so it needs to squeeze them down a little. Therefore, there must be some clearance in the BB track, because otherwise you will not be able to fully seat the magazine and the magazine catch on the gun will not work. When you will be using this dedicated speed loader, you will notice that this last BB goes very tough, and you can push it in if you force it, but you feel definitely something's wrong. Don't do it, or if you do it, there will be nothing bad coming out of it. You will be not able to seat the magazine with the bolt carrier group when it's forward. If it will be in the rear position, the magazine will go in, and after the first reload, this additional 1 BB will be taken out of the magazine, loaded into the chamber, and whole mechanism will work the exact way it is designed to work. So just one more consideration. If the BBs will be jamming after you do this formatting, the best way to find out what's the reason is to track where the follower is, because 99% of the issues will be coming from a follower catching on some debris or uncleaned surfaces inside of the magazine. So for example, if you will notice that your magazine jams usually at let's say 15 BBs, it means that the follower is 15 BB slower, which is probably somewhere here, and the problem that you are looking for is there inside, somewhere around this place. You need to open the magazine exactly the other way around like I showed. Look into this place. You can actually put 15 BBs into the half of the magazine, see where the follower is, and try to look for any obstacles for it to go smoothly. For these magazines, and actually all Frog Engineering magazines that will be coming up, there is a dedicated speed loader that you can also print or get from Frog Engineering together with the magazines and your GBBRs. And you can use it to safely load and unload these magazines. Everybody who owned the GBBR, any GBBR, probably knows how troublesome it is to load it and then unload it. So there is a special tool created to do both, and I recommend using it also for the formatting. Some additional troubleshooting. If there is any issue with the follower, I already described the debris. It's also possible that the spring will have sharp tip and will catch somewhere, so I said you should bend this tip inwards at the side of the follower. On the other side the spring is stationary, so it makes no difference. If there are any troubles with the bolt catch, you have to look here and make sure that this arm is long enough to engage the lever in your conversion. If you decide to use resin like I do, remember that the resin over time it shrinks volumetrically, meaning in all directions, for like 0.1 or 0.05 millimeters. So at first these magazines might be kind of tight because they are, let's say, freshly printed, but you will see that when you use them they will start to fit better and better and better. For this assembly, follow the instructions that are just exactly the other way around. And that's all for this episode. The next one will explain the speed loader assembly plus how to use it. Thanks.